action.
Welcome to the presentation on self-regulation by Rebecca Applegate, Talia Peterson, Heather Vandigriff, and Rebecca Guerrero. Self-regulation was described in our research as a conscious process in which one assesses thoughts, feelings, and impulses, and then chooses what to do with them in light of one's higher goals or purposes. So self-regulation is a volitional process where we can actively evaluate our thoughts, feelings, and impulses, and then choose for ourselves what we want to do with them. For example, if we're feeling angry, or we can engage in good self-regulation, and we can evaluate our thoughts, what was upsetting us, or evaluate our feelings, why are we feeling angry, and then look at our impulses and decide, do we have the urge to lash out, and we can control that, and we can choose a different behavior that would be more effective. So what are the benefits of self-regulation? A study was conducted to determine if there was a positive correlation between self-regulation and increased psychological well-being. And the findings, probably not surprisingly, are yes. There is a positive correlation between good self-regulation and our well-being. According to researchers, self-regulation was positively tied to dimensions of personal growth, personal relatedness, purpose in life, and self-acceptance. In other words, developing the ability to manage our thoughts and feelings leads to measurable results in managing stress, promoting positive mental health, empowering individual growth towards one's goals. And we've looked at psychological well-being in reference to self-regulation in the context of well-being to include autonomy, which is, of course, how one governs oneself. And we looked at psychological well-being in terms of environmental mastery, how we handle ourselves in the situations around us. We looked at psychological well-being in terms of purpose in life, one's purpose, one's goals, one's dreams, one's ambitions. And that kind of comes along the same lines as personal growth, or how one develops their talents and their individual capabilities. We looked at psychological well-being in terms of positive relationships with others, and there was quite a strong correlation with self-regulation and our ability to form good relationships with those around us. And additionally, we looked at psychological well-being in terms of self-acceptance, and this actually self-regulation plays a huge role in self-acceptance as well. Once we are in control of ourselves, we won't lash out, we won't have emotional reactions, and we will be happier, more content, more at peace with the person that we are, because it's the person that we're choosing to be and not just a reactive or impulsive person. What I loved most about the research and looking at this process was learning that self-regulation is a process. We learned that self-regulation is a process that involves both skills and strategy. And so what we know about skills, the skill set is something that we can develop. We can acquire skills that we don't have. We can improve skills that we do have. And so it takes learning, experience, knowledge, ability, training, competence, and we can look for a multitude of resources that can help us in developing good self-regulation or self-control. And we can acquire and build on these skills continuously through practice, through reading, through modeling, through looking at examples of how to best do this. And the other thing I liked about it was we can strategize. We can even preemptively look at situations that are coming up and determine how we're going to respond, knowing if there's going to be a stressful situation. For instance, final exams or something. If we know that we get really stressed during final exams, we can preemptively prepare for how we're going to deal with roommates or family members or people around us, and setting the stage and the environment and the situation such that we can manage it well and be in control at all times.
Another experiment that we took a look at looked closely at what self-regulation consists of. They defined self-regulation in this experiment on schizophrenics and self-regulation as personal initiative, or a person's ability to get up and go to do something that needed to be done. Perseverance, or a person's ability to endure things that they feel are difficult and keep trying even when they fall short. And adaptive skill, or a person's ability to learn from their mistakes and get better with each try. Now, with these experiments, they also looked into the idea of cognitive function and how it relates to self-regulation. They defined cognitive function as functions that enable humans to perform in everyday life in the spheres of personal, social, and occupational activities. So, in essence, cognitive function is the ability to learn new information and to gain skills in our everyday lives, to plan and execute those plans, to understand language and to communicate, and to solve complex problems. Now, this was something that was important for them to define because while each of us who don't struggle with mental illness might find this fairly easy, people with schizophrenia do struggle quite a bit with a lot of these cognitive functions. And so they wanted to study the ability of people to use self-regulation to improve their cognitive function. Now, the results of their study were that self-regulation is positively correlated with cognitive functions. It was found to be positively correlated with self-concern, and self-concern is taking care of one's body and one's things, their belongings. Everything that belongs to you and is a part of you is something that needs to be taken care of, and that is something that is improved by self-regulation. Improved social relationships, as we mentioned before with the first experiment that we studied. And finally, helping individuals participate in recreational and community activities. Together, these three things with self-regulation were able to improve cognitive functions for all of the individuals involved in the study.
The study I looked at self-regulation and bullying behaviors. It defines self-regulation as the capacity for altering one's own responses, especially to bring them into line with standards such as ideals, values, morals, and social expectations, and to support the pursuit of long-term goals. Likewise, the article defined abusive supervision, a type of bullying, as perceptions of the extent to which supervisors engage in the sustained display of hostile verbal and nonverbal behaviors, excluding physical contact. The authors then conducted a study in order to answer these research questions, which were, what is the relationship between self-regulation and the enactment of bullying behaviors? And does using self-regulation reduce the chance of bullying in the workplace? Their results demonstrated that aggressive behaviors are more likely to be enacted when self-regulatory resources are low. This investigation specifically demonstrated that perception of abusive supervision correlated with the depletion of self-regulatory resources during both positive and negative situational contexts. They also demonstrated that context matters because employees reported less state self-regulation when experiencing abusive supervision under negative contexts than under positive contexts, which led to increased bullying. In addition, they found that employees engaging in active coping skills are less likely to engage in bullying behaviors in response to supervisory abuse when their state self-regulation levels are low. From this research, we see that self-regulation is a powerful skill set for reducing bullying and may have benefits for reducing bullying in a general context.
Okay, so the article I studied was done by Ben J. Zimmerman of University of New York, and he was looking at all the different steps to attain self-regulation. So he believed in a positive belief set, so to look at self-efficacy more than outcome expectations. Self-efficacy is, how to perform more effectively as to looking far into the future and having a more pessimistic way of looking at your outcomes. Also to avoid peer pressure and to uphold more positive self-evaluation because you'll have a better performance. And yeah, just to have a plan and manage those different areas of the goal setting. And that was it. And if you want to take a look at our reference page, you can study more of what we learned. And thanks for listening.